Hi everybody, welcome to Between the Bolter and Me's first podcast, Dragged into Turbolasers. My name is Eric Wire, and I'm joined by my two brothers, Adam Wire.
Hey everybody.
And Gregory Wire.
Hey everybody, yeah, I'm Greg, not to be confused with Craig.
Yeah, well, so tonight wanted to just give a little background about why we decided to start this new podcast. And we at Between the Bolter and Me have now been doing this for like 3 years now. And we started...
But you mean the blog, not the podcast.
Yeah, we've been doing the blog Between the Bolter and Me for 3 years now. And we started it initially just for the goal of to sort of energize our hobby efforts and to stay connected with primarily Warhammer 40,000. And just over time, it's allowed us to really keep at it, keep developing all our techniques and making new models and just exploring the 40K universe and just the modeling hobby in general over these years. But we've kind of come to realize that although the blog has been great for us and a good way to kind of express ourselves, we've kind of by necessity become pretty selective about what we're actually having our posts on, and they end up being pretty much limited to the current modeling projects we're working on. And then the second kind of thing would be just posts about models that we're excited about, and primarily excited about because we're planning to use them or would like to use them in projects we would like to start or are currently working on.
Writing takes a long time. Who knew?
Yeah, and I feel that the three of us are fairly opinionated about miniatures and Warhammer and can be fairly critical of things, but since we've tried to be fairly positive with what we talk about on the website, we haven't really delved into some of the models and stuff that we don't like so much. And I think that this podcast will give us an opportunity to more speak our mind about things. So we might actually be criticizing things more.
Yeah, but so kind of speaking to that point, yeah, just due to time constraints, a lot of elements of the miniature wargaming hobby just never get discussed on the blog. And
Age of Sigmar came out this year, and who knew? Like, we barely said anything about it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It was big.
Maybe that was better.
Yeah, but it was a big thing by Games Workshop to kind of kill Warhammer Fantasy and add Age of Sigmar, and we had, maybe 2 posts on it?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Which, yeah, I mean, it's fine.
I had absolutely nothing to do with it.
But
I played a game, one game of it, I think.
Yeah, but so we thought that perhaps starting a semi-regular podcast would allow us to just sort of expand what we get to talk about, all sorts of aspects of the hobbies, talking about all sorts of miniatures that are released, or kind of our thoughts on them, what they might be good for, even if we don't necessarily play like the game with them or anything of that nature, and potentially use it to talk about kind of hobby techniques and such we use, and things like that. And
generate new ideas for potential content on the blog as well. Like, good venue for just all of us to talk about what's on our mind and where we could potentially go with what we're working on.
Yeah, and like currently there are a lot of 40K podcasts out there, and like I listen to a bunch of them as well, but there's a pretty large focus, I feel, on tournament play and
making that new competitive list.
Yeah, instead of talking about the actual modeling and having a focus on creating those models and such. And while I still like to listen to some of these podcasts that do deal with competitive play, quite frankly, that's competitive play just isn't what drew me into Warhammer 40,000 or the miniature
I haven't played the game in 2 years.
Yeah, I myself haven't played the game in probably 3 years and don't really intend to do so, but I still love Warhammer 40,000 and like to be involved with it, but I could give two shits about playing the game.
Yeah, so I feel for me, it's always been about the models and the lore and such that surrounds that. And yeah, that's why we started Between the Bolter and Me in the first place, just to have a forum to critically talk and discuss about models and show kind of what we're doing and just try to become a part of the community. So yeah, that's why we wanted to start this podcast, Dragged into Turbolasers, another sort of pun off of some different metal bands. But I guess
it's a rockin' UK doom metal band, Dragged into Sunlight. You should consider checking them out.
Yeah, but I guess to getting into sort of tonight's episode, I think we had
rambled enough.
Yeah, but to actually get to what we plan to talk about, I think we want to break it into roughly 2 parts. The first, just talking about the model releases of 2015, being that, you know, it's just 2016.
2016, it's here.
Yeah, it's here. And just kind of a reflection back at what's been released. And then kind of expanding on that, the second aspect of the podcast will probably be about just projects we would like to do and we're currently working on and kind of ambitions of where we'd like to go with the blog and I guess this podcast in general in the future. So I guess to kick it off, let's talk a little bit about the models that were released in 2015, and I guess to that point we actually have a post on Between the Bolter and Me that was put up a few days ago talking about kind of our favorite models of the year. And on that note, Games Workshop, what does everyone think about Games Workshop's year?
I think it should first be said that we didn't prepare for this, so we'll see.
I think it goes without saying that Games Workshop had a great year for releasing models. I can't say everything they put out was something that I really loved, but just about everything they released was at least sculpted pretty well and produced well.
Wait a minute, Adam. They released the new Imperial Assassins. They were not very good. They took a classic Jess Goodwin design set of miniatures, which admittedly weren't overly dynamic, and tried to redo them and ended up having really awkwardly proportioned models that maybe at first glance seem good, but once you consider them at all,
they're a lot larger than the old Assassins. The scale's a little bit wonky.
Yeah, no, I feel everyone saw them and was super excited, like, oh, I love Assassins, and like the concept that they were.
Oh my god, these models are so good!
Yeah, like new plastic Assassins, like that whole concept
sounded great.
Yeah, I wanted it for years, and now we had it. People were excited, but
I can't wait until they sell each individual model for $32.
They already do, but I don't. How much do they cost? I don't know.
They're at least $35, and
I think, yeah.
I feel when you objectively look at those models, other than I guess the Evisator, they're
or Evisor,
maybe they're
whatever
worth
he's called.
$10.
Yeah, no, they're just not.
Well,
that great.
The Sniper Assassin, the Vindicare, I think that's what he's called. He has a lot of talking points just by himself. If you ever take a look at his feet are probably where most of the attention is drawn. They are they look like clown feet, I'll put it bluntly. They're huge.
Yeah, they are massive, and his sniper rifle is just it's like he's holding a 2x4. Like that kind of destroys the notion of a clandestine warrior when he's.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the art on the box of the game, it's way smaller in the art and it just looks a lot better. I guess one thing that's interesting about that model in general, even on Jess Goodwin's old model, one of the things that always struck me is interesting. On the model's chest, he has at least 3 different rounds for his rifle, and none of those rounds are actually like sculpted as rifle bullets.
Are they shotgun shell sort of things?
No, they look like they're a pistol round.
Yeah, it looks
But
like.
they're probably fucking huge, right?
Yeah, they're big.
It looks like they're like.
They're just not
Magnum.
necked. They're not
Magnum
necked
round.
like a normal rifle bullet.
Well, that doesn't surprise me too much. People don't know what bullets look like. I think Forge World's one Primarch model, I don't know, what's the guy with the big turbo cannon things?
Yeah, Iron Warriors dude.
Perturabo?
Yeah,
Yeah, he was one of the first models that, in recent memory, that they actually have like necked ammunition for his like quad barrel wrist-mounted autocannons.
The Logos or whatever is
I was
wrist-mounted
pretty
guns.
jammed about that.
Yeah, great.
It was it was a surprise and like nice to see because it's just not hell bolter rounds. They aren't neck, but I don't know bolters.
Doesn't really matter.
Miniature
We're
rockets,
about shit.
whatever.
Let's.
Yeah, we were talking about the assassins.
They were so. Moral of the story: those new assassin models are terrible.
Yeah, not.
I mean, you could probably they're probably not worth your time unless you're willing to go in there and really convert them and modify them.
They're terrible.
Yeah, but so I guess good models, bad models, like what?
Well, so I would say that Games Workshop had a bunch of high-profile releases. Certainly, the Adeptus Mechanicus being released.
A whole new army. We haven't seen the likes of that since I don't even know when.
Dark. Well, yeah.
The Tau and before them the Dark Eldar, I guess.
I feel the Adeptus Mechanicus stuff was almost universally great, so I don't feel that we need to talk about that like the website. We used a bunch of that stuff in conversions and talked a lot about how great they were, and I think most people would agree with that. So I feel another high-profile release of the year was the release of a plastic Bloodthirster, the Greater Demon of Khorne.
Yeah, finally, everybody's been waiting for years for a new
Over 15
Greater Demon.
years for plastic Greater Demons, and finally 2015 was the year that they released one. And
Well, the old model was really small and really wonky and didn't make it.
Wasn't a
didn't
centerpiece
inspire
for anything.
Too much confidence as to what the horrifying nature of a Bloodthirster.
Blood for the Blood God.
yeah, and so I guess this release, like, it's certainly impressive, large model, which I guess is good.
I mean, overall, I think the model certainly was sculpted well, and I can't complain too much about that. It's plastic, but even saying that, I would be lying if I didn't say I was a little upset when I first saw the sculpt of the model.
I feel the model it's just like loaded with all sorts of kind of excessive detail that I don't know if it really coalesces well together.
All muscles all the time.
And he's like doing kind of like a little skip, but just
Oh yeah, he's skipping to town, like he's bounding along.
and I feel the wings too, like impressive and large. Like they seem to didn't have a good idea of what they wanted to do with the wings. They just added all these like
Tears almost.
on the wings, like the folds that just don't do it any favors and just sort of distract from the model itself. And talking about distracting from the model, the Bloodthirster's weapons, like
Oh wait,
not-
so yeah,
they're not
Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury. Yeah. That double.
Unfettered Fury, what a cool name. It's just put a lot of cool words together, and that's a cool idea.
That's the one with the double-handed axe, the D weapon that everyone was so excited about.
But, yeah, like, for a model, like a demon that's supposed to be in your face, scary, frightening, like the culmination of all that is the Blood God, like, I just don't see why they needed to make each of its weapons like practically bigger than the demon itself. I mean, it just like distracts from the model itself and like focuses solely on those overwrought weapons rather than like the muscular demon. And I don't know, I feel in general Games Workshop and most model miniature companies sort of falter there, in which they, to make a model neat, they just sort of rely on making these oversized, overwrought weapons rather than just focusing on like the character.
Yeah. Have any of you actually seen the actual sprues for the model?
I don't know if I don't think I actually have.
Okay, so it's been a little while since I've worked on it, but I was actually in the process of assembling one of the Bloodthirsters and converting it for a friend. And I mean, looking at the sprues and all the components, they're done very well. And I feel this is kind of one of those models you can go into it and choose different aspects of the model, and by the end you can make a really nice looking model. It's just, I mean, I guess if you
Maybe
look at...
you could, I could.
Well, I mean, if you just look at some of the heads they sculpted for the model, I mean, I guess it's interesting they were trying to do some new things with the heads, but most of them don't really scream Bloodthirster. I mean, the only one that I really like is, it kind of looks like the classic Balrog head seen on some of the GW models.
We talked for 17 minutes. Like, I feel the moral of the story is the Bloodthirster, while being a somewhat impressive kit, it doesn't capture the fury and terror of like what the Bloodthirster should be. Not nearly as well as the older Forge World release that admittedly was probably $200 and was gigantic, but that I feel was a much better model.
He's not running.
It's true, but
It's
I
not
mean,
skipping.
regardless, I mean, it's better than that old metal one. So I mean, that's something.
People are happy, and I can largely be happy with them, I guess.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, what else did Games Workshop release? I mean, they released a whole slew of Tau models that...
They were all pretty good.
Yeah, I think they were pretty good. I mean, I'm not...
The open canopy Super Walker...
yeah,
I don't know
in
what that
general,
was called.
I don't know. Tau's good. It's a very different sort of race, but I don't know. I don't need big mecha like Gundam Macross style stuff in 40K. It's not.
I mean, they have their place. It's just not what I get excited about.
Yeah, so good releases, but.
Well, so I guess it's interesting to say like Games Workshop now has shifted a little more over to have like smaller splash releases where they only release one or two models at a time, and they might even release models from several different armies at a time, and we've seen a bunch of that over this year. Like just recently they released a model that I think lots of people are really excited about, the new Blood Angels Chaplain, the one with the jump pack. I feel it goes without saying everyone most people love seeing new Space Marine character models. I mean, I used to love that.
I mean, just having, new parts, because, I don't know, anyone who's played 40K has a few Space Marines, like, so to have more parts and stuff to work with, is exciting. Particularly plastic stuff, like, is nice, like, so I can see why people would be excited about it, and, like, Blood Angels, they're just a popular
Angels of
army.
Death.
But, like,
This new model is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it too well. I mean, I guess
Terrible.
it's well detailed, sort of, but overall, its whole composition isn't too pleasing. I feel he doesn't invoke most of the ideas that I think of when talking or imagining Space Marines. And this has sort of been a problem with a lot of their Space Marine releases as of late, and even over a number of years. Like, Space Marines I feel their armor should be, like, bulky. Like, you should be able to fit a superhuman muscled warrior within that armor. And if you look at this new Blood Angels chaplain, half of him, they've modified the armor to make it look like it was corded with muscle, and in doing that, make that half of the armor look even thinner and smaller, and you question whether even a skeleton could fit within that armor rather than a superhuman warrior. And that's just not good.
I feel also adding to that, like, it has a skull helmet like all chaplains do, but somehow they haven't released like a single like modern chaplain model that just has like a nice looking skull. Like, this one is some weird, like,
I don't even know what's going on.
Skulls are awesome, and 40k is rife with skulls, but that's a bad skull.
and like, I don't know, I feel the model is just so filled with detail that it's just there for the sake of detail, and like, what can make him more awesome? Like, let's give him an Inferno pistol. Like, it just.
Well, I guess we haven't even talked about his Crozius. Like, I feel each time they release a chaplain model, they make that larger and larger, and case in point, this is the largest we've seen yet.
Admittedly, though, the haft of it isn't quite as thick as they seem to like doing.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel
It looks almost like he has like a tennis racket.
He's jumping up to hit a tennis ball across the court.
Get a good return.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I don't know. In general, I feel they haven't released a model with a good-looking Crozius since Jess Goodwin's old, like, classic second edition stuff. Every release since practically has been kind of like, I don't know, overdone and just not.
This seems
doesn't look
like
a weapon.
A throwback to the old terrible Lamartie's model.
Yeah,
This is a better sculpt than that.
at least it's better than that. But
He sort of had his own charm, though.
a wonky charm.
Yeah, he did.
I suppose that's true. We had that Terminator on her or whatever that was like
Hanging from his
torso.
pistol, I think.
Yeah, well,
That's true. It was
we don't
huge.
need to talk about that model anymore. It was a pretty bad model, and I don't think anyone's too upset that it's gone.
I will say one thing I sort of like about the model. I kind of like the little collared wings he has. But again, I think they would look a lot better if his body itself was just a lot bigger and his legs were bulkier. Now it looks a little oversized with the rest of him. His hand is really thin, too. He couldn't have fingers in that gauntlet.
Yeah. Well, I guess, what about some other releases? I mean, I guess GW released the Harlequins at the
I
beginning of the year.
like them. For the most part, I thought they were all pretty good. I was hoping that they would redesign their pistols and everything, and not just use
the kind of oversized shuriken pistols and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're nice. I mean, I like them overall, the design.
But it does sort of lose that elegance that you sort of associate with the Eldar.
I mean, I really like the older designs of those Shuriken weapons. Like, they didn't have those, like, banana magazines to load them, and they looked a little sleeker and nicer. So I was hoping that they would modify them a little, but I really wasn't expecting they would.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it was
Was a good release.
The general plastic ones were good. Hell, we finally saw like kind of the new updated jet bike design for them, which I feel had been rumored for so long, and they finally released that.
Well, shit, that would be great, Adam. You should consider trying to convert an Imperial jet bike with some of them. A throwback to the second, or maybe it was first edition.
Well, I mean, the Harlequin jet bikes,
Marines.
those were the ones with the twin riders,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they were a little different.
But then finally later, I guess,
they released the Eldar.
Elder
jet
had
bikes.
another release this year and finally released just the classic jet bike.
They're nice.
Which
Remember how
is
the
nice.
Master of the Raven Wing, they made an Imperial jet bike for him? That was horrible.
Yeah, it's still a
They
fine
still have
cast.
Can
it.
you still get it?
You can still get it. And
I think
Is he
it's
still a character in the new Dark Angels rulebook?
yeah, no, they still have him, which they still have him, and he's okay, but like I don't know, I would never want it. I feel if you'd really want Samael in the Dark Angels army, you'd need to convert it. I don't know, maybe use one of Forge Worlds.
Maybe
they have
the
some jet
existence
bikes and
of that
stuff.
stupid jet bike is really what makes the Dark Angels unforgiven.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I guess there was the release of the new Dark Angels book this year, and
Had some of the worst artwork Games Workshop has ever seen.
yeah, well, I don't know. I feel that can be the subject of another podcast.
Well, I
Games
guess
Workshop's
still I
decline
feel it needs to be said that, like, if I saw that artwork when I was 12, I wouldn't be playing Warhammer. Or I wouldn't care about Warhammer, because God, it was horrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that can sort of lead us maybe to talk a little bit about the Age of Sigmar models that were released, because
an avalanche from an unknown quarter.
Well, yeah, because I was getting increasingly concerned that like GW like got rid of any talented artists.
Not that I wouldn't say talented. It's just.
But were they?
Well, so I mean, this past year it slowed down a bunch, but for a while there, they were releasing like a new codex, like every month for a long time. So with the rate they were pumping stuff out, like
I don't think the artists were given due time or enough time to really do their best. But I don't know, like
some of the stuff looked like it was taken right off of DeviantArt.
Like, yeah, like some of it was not particularly good, but I feel with the release
Games Workshop doesn't really credit their artists anymore. I mean, so no one would know that I actually drew some of those books.
Yeah, well, you didn't.
Yeah, no, that's not true. But
their lack of crediting stuff just goes to how it seems like they're just undervalue that element of the hobby and just their books and such. But as I was getting to, with the release of Age of Sigmar, I feel the artwork is kind of moved back to being important again, with artwork that more is reminiscent of Karl Kapinski's sort of work and Alex Boyd and some of those better artists, which I think is encouraging. So I guess maybe they just had some of
they focused a lot more of their attention and effort to that, at least for a while. And that's good. I mean, I will say, like, some of the art is a lot brighter than what was traditionally seen in some of their earlier stuff, which overall I think was kind of neat. And even in, like, some of the Harlequin artwork was a lot brighter too, but I think fit pretty well within at least the scheme of what they were going for.
Yeah, no, but so, yeah, Age of Sigmar was released, and, like, I don't know, I feel like most people, right, when it was released, I was pretty excited about it. Like, the Stormcast, admittedly, they just, like, what's that? Space Marines to
cool.
Fantasy, which is a little bit, I don't know, maybe they didn't really need that, but I don't know.
I like it how each warrior is like a hero, like a hero of 1,000 psychic wars.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I still think they look pretty neat, and I was pretty excited about them, and they're kind of.
You're not still excited?
Yeah, now I guess I was getting to that they just had like 3 months of solid like piecemeal releasing like a single model each week that basically all look the same. All the Stormcast models, while like kind of neat with their sort of sculpted like armor and such, but every single Stormcast model is exactly the same. And admittedly, all the different classes of Stormcast were all released in the basic box game. So like, you just knew like it was released in the span of 3 months. They released all these boxes, which ended up being just multi-part models of what we had already seen. Game. Which I mean is fine, but it just.
Where were the new Bloodhounds? Where were they? The Fleshhounds.
Yeah, like the. Well, yeah.
Of course, they made a really nice one for the Chaos Lord.
The slow release schedule sucked out all the excitement that we all had.
Yeah, it was really innovating, and
I mean, I was still reasonably happy with it. It was kind of a nice break from the rapid fire releases.
Yeah, I mean that is true.
Before,
and I still think there's a lot of potential with Age of Sigmar because they kind of
great for conversions.
They kind of went towards that almost like Dungeons and Dragons Planescape setting with all these different realms or whatever, and I think they have the opportunity of kind of redesigning like dwarves and lizardmen and all orcs and all that stuff.
Slaanesh is gone.
Yeah, but we still have no real evidence of what they're going to do, and hopefully they don't just slip back into the status quo that had been Warhammer Fantasy. And if they do kind of capitalize on this opportunity to do something new and like unique for Games Workshop, like I think that would be strong.
Overall, I think they've done a pretty good job, and I don't really like all the releases, but I think there's enough there that largely had me satisfied.
Yeah, like I think that the Khorne models, where some of them are a little bit overwrought and too He-Man, muscly, I still think by and large they were fairly good.
I feel, as I kind of mentioned earlier, though, parts of them will work very well for conversions of all manner, and I think more so with them than some of the other kits. If you had them in your hand and were looking at the models, you could find uses for a lot of the components, even if it was just taking some of the masks that they have on some of their heads.
Yeah, for like I guess they're called Blood Warriors, or like sort of the Khornite Berserker type models.
Yeah, I like some of their masks.
Some of their masks are pretty great. I feel people already have and will continue to kind of use those like crested helmets to make neat like
I think they'll work well for that
and stuff, and doing all that sort of. I mean, some of them have pretty ridiculous and overdone weapons, like, but you know, you can convert that, or you can do what you want with that. So I think that's fine. Although, interestingly, at the end of the year here, they started to branch out and not just do Khorne completely, and started to add a few additional Chaos models. And they released like a new version of the Everchosen Archeon, or I don't know, however you say his name, and I don't know, like, it's an impressive model, like big and whatnot, but I almost feel he sort of falls into like the sort of the Bloodthirster category, that he's impressive and like a lot of aspects of the model is really well done, but ultimately
look at that fan-like tail. I like his tail.
Sort of underwhelming. Like,
I don't know. I feel what hurts the model the most is the Archeon himself.
It's like almost like an afterthought. I mean, he's still big compared to most.
Well, I mean, that was one of the things that was so great about the original Archeon model that Brian Nelson sculpted years ago, it actually looked like he was riding that horse. He was a part of that model and not just perched atop of it. And this looks very much like they sculpted the mount and then sculpted him and just set him on top.
Well, and then, like, I don't know, classic GW, they had to make his, like, demon sword with the Slayer of Kings. Like,
It's even bigger.
Make it bigger. Like, that'll make it cool. And it's just...
At least the creature he's riding is fairly substantial and not spindly and skinny like a lot of the old miniatures of beasts and stuff were.
I mean, that's true. And like
Archeon's head just doesn't look good compared to the old one.
Yeah, I mean, he just...
I guess I will say he kind of... Yeah, he's sort of reminiscent to the original plastic Chaos Warrior kit. Tiny pinhead head, massive like body and arms, but it just doesn't work well with Archeon, particularly when everyone remembers the model Brian Nelson made, which was so... I mean, at the time, like, we hadn't seen anything like that, and it was fantastic. Actually, did anyone notice on Archeon, on his shield, you can still see the Slanesh symbol? It's still there.
That's cool.
Yeah, but
I bet the model looks neater in person. The actual pieces and stuff are probably...
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point, because I feel a lot of Games Workshop's models look better in person. Like, well, not to say that the heavy metal team isn't talented, but I almost feel like they're told to like paint everything in these like stark contrasts, so like the skull's really bleached and everything, such that every little detail just is emblazoned and stands out so much, rather than like fit together in like a cohesive like way, such that they, I don't know, almost look caricatured, even when the model
isn't necessarily
that.
One of the other things that I do really like about the model, I feel his shield might be a little overawed, but if you look, there's really nice detail on the back of it. It looks like there's just a whole bunch of like sheets of metal are layered on top of one another. Just looks really nice. His cape's interesting too. I sort of like the cape. It's like billowing up behind him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, but it's certainly not a terrible release. And I mean, it's impressive that they can do all this in plastic models and such. But I don't know. I just don't think it's as iconic and neat as just.
I mean, I will not remember the model.
Oh, and at $165, like
it's $165.
Yeah, so it's
holy Jesus.
Like, yeah, no, just no, would never do that. Just no, just
can't justify that.
Way too much money for something that like you couldn't fit in the case.
Where would
you
you
couldn't
even put it?
transport. Like,
where would you put it?
Yeah, just
nowhere. That's the answer.
So ultimately, like,
it almost looks like he's actually just, he's pretty much just standing on the monster.
Yeah, that's Games Workshop. That's what they do. So I guess we've been talking a lot about Games Workshop, but we didn't really say anything about any of like the other model companies this year, and for that matter, like. Even in our best models of the year, like we basically just talked about Games Workshop, other than that Big Child Creative Studios, which had that excellent Kickstarter releasing a whole host of pirate-themed orcs, which I think
wonderful,
some of the best things of the year. But we didn't really mention Weird with their like Malifaux line, or Infinity at all. Like,
I will be honest with Weird, like I haven't paid as much attention to their releases this past year as I had before, and I think a lot of that was due to some of the things they released. Like, I think the proportions of the models have been getting more and more exaggerated.
I mean, War or Weird
as they went on.
Always, like, their kind of character designs have always leaned towards, like, extremely, like, lanky and long limbed, which, I mean, it is fine. Like, I kind of like it. It's just a style they've kind of tried to stick with and work with, which isn't inherently bad, but I feel with it, it's on the verge of being acceptable, and being so close to that line of being ridiculous and acceptable, I feel leads to the possibility of models that just don't look right. And I feel this year, much more than last year, they had a whole bunch of releases that just looked awkward. And even when the pictures, like, there's the one model, Sue, I think is his name. He's like a kind of a
gunslinger with a guitar.
And, like, the picture, they have a nice illustration of him that looks cool, and the actual model was released this year, and, like, the top half of him looks basically just like the picture and looks, like, really nice, but then his legs look like completely unlike the illustration and, like, 2 times too long, and it just
they're really long.
He just looks ridiculous.
And then on top of the really long legs, his head is even smaller than the illustration. It just, the balance just isn't there, and I was pretty upset.
Yeah, because I was excited about him, and I don't know, I feel a bunch of Malifaux's releases this year, like, the heads were made smaller than they should have been, and legs longer, to the point that it, like, I don't know,
doesn't work.
Yeah, and I just, consequently just didn't really get or do much with Weird this year, so that's kind of why we didn't do much.
I feel some of the stuff that they released at the very end of the year really improved on some of that, and I really like some of the models. But actually, getting back to that problem we were talking about, they finally released a general release of Terra and her crew, where they essentially just reposed the original plastic models, and they don't look good. They don't look good at all. Terra is, like, running forward, and
yeah, and I don't know. It's a shame, because the original release, which I guess was one of those Gen Con special releases, was really neat. Like, I liked them a lot, and
it's amazing what bad posing can do and how it can really ruin a model. And this was a great example of that.
Yeah, no, so I guess ultimately I hope Weird kind of learns.
They released some nice goblin models this year.
That's true. Well,
I
hopefully
like their goblins.
2016 results in some better models. And to be honest, I feel Corvus Belli and Infinity kind of had a similar story. Not that the proportions were wildly off, but, like, I feel, well, a bunch of the models they released were pretty good. Like, there were always something about each model that looked a little weird. Like, they had a whole host of different Ariadna
US
soldiers.
Ariadna, like, I was really excited about that stuff.
And, like, I don't know, a lot of the models look pretty good, but they'll have, like, their shins are so overly long, or, like, their hips are, like, awkwardly placed, and it just makes the whole composition of the model look weird. And it also, to that, like, it's become more and more apparent that, like, they'll have, like, a sculptor make, like, two models, like, 2 poses of models, and then just take that model and resculpt the head, maybe change the weapon, and pass it off as a new model. And, I mean, they still often look pretty good, but it just...
Pretty different, but...
It still seems like kind of a a lost opportunity for like the talent that they.
I mean, they have great sculptors. Like, I mean, hell, even last year, like, our favorite model of the year was one of the little Spetsnaz models of the boarding shotgun, and like, he like embodies everything that I love about Infinity. And I feel in this past year they released a number of models that I did really like, but I don't think anything quite reached quite what they did with that model.
Or just like last year they released that like Operation Ice Storm starter box.
Oh yeah, they were great.
I don't think most of the releases this year were quite up to that quality. They just seemed like
one of the things that I wish they hadn't done is I will say it's admirable that they're now going through the whole line and essentially resculpting a lot of the old models, redesigning them, and trying to make them look a little more uniform. That's great, but I really wish they hadn't changed the scale of the models, because the newer models are just larger in scale than the old ones. And I mean, I have a whole bunch of Ariadne models that I really like, but they just don't. They look pretty weird standing beside the little Spetsnaz dude with the shotgun. And I mean, as the game progresses forward and they release more and more models, it won't matter as much. But I mean, some of their old models are classic. Like, I really like them.
Well, I guess that is one thing. Infinity was always pretty good about having their models not be quite as like the heroic scale that Games Workshop uses, and having smaller hands, smaller weapons, like the pistols that most of the models
Most models actually have pistols, and that's great.
And they're actually like a reasonable size. Like, they're not like, there's bolt pistols that are like as big as a man's torso.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, like actually like a sidearm, which I think like is good on them, and I'm glad they're doing that. And honestly, Malifaux's kind of like that too. And so,
yeah, I mean, I'm still tempted to buy some of the US Ariadne models they released to kind of see what they look like in person. Like, I like a lot of the heavy armor that the models are wearing. And well, we'll see. Maybe I'll do some with some of them this year.
It's a pretty serious kick in the dick when some of the best models in that kit, though, are the big werewolf guys.
Yeah, and I don't know, like big beasts and stuff. That's not why I'm interested in this stuff. That's same thing with like even Warhammer 40,000. What excites me about it is like the humans, the Inquisitors, and the like Imperial Guardsmen and such, like the stuff Dan Abnett would write about in the Gaunt's Ghost novels and stuff like that. The human condition, like, because it's something we can actually relate to, not these gigantic wolves, humanoid wolves and stuff. Like
dressed up as commandos. That's not cool.
Yeah, I just don't have much interest in that.
But I mean, we touched on this a little before, but Infinity, the people there do a great job of actually having weapons that actually have stocks. Most of them even have like holographic sights or like iron sights on their weapons, etc. Like,
yeah, that can't be said.
Goes
about
along
Games
well,
Workshop, or at least not often. I mean, admittedly, the Adeptus Mechanicus, a bunch of them did.
Yeah, they did a good job this year, I feel.
Was just one more reason why they were just such a refreshing and excellent release. Like, almost all the Mechanicum stuff was like better than I could have hoped for. Like, it seemed like they built on concepts and like improved them rather than just like redesigning like a whole army of the classic tech priest look. Like, they actually put new energy and designs in there that I think like was so much better because of that. Well, I guess we've talked for a while now about kind of just some of these releases of last year. Maybe we should transition to talk a little bit about what 2016 holds for just the actual projects and modeling things we're actually doing on the blog. So what do you think? What do you think sort of our focus is going to be this year?
I feel sort of what, even like last year, we had a big focus initially on converting models for Inquisitor on like the 28mm scale. And at least for me, I feel a lot of my focus, or I'd like to do this, is focus it on adding models to what I've already done with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, because ever since the blog started, we had been kind of slowly working on some like 28 scale Inquisitors, but never got too far with it until the excellent blog Iron Sleet had the invitational, which I guess was January of last year, that kind of really jump-started this and encouraged us to actually really try to
I started painting again because of it.
Yeah, how long had it been?
Probably at least 6 years.
Yeah, so I feel that it was just a great
opportunity.
Just to actually get into that, and I feel a lot was done last year, and I feel I agree, to continue with that and continue to expand Soljix, Inquisitor, Soljix, retinue and such, and that sort of thing is certainly going to be a focus. And I know we don't often actually play Warhammer 40,000 or any of those games, but I kind of mentioned it in one of the previous posts this year when we were talking about one of Malifaux's new releases. I think the shifting loyalties campaign setting that allowed you to use kind of the Malifaux rule set, which I'm a pretty big fan of, because it shifts away from using 6-sided dice to the card-based system. And I kind of suggested that maybe that could be used to play games of Inquisitor. And I think I would really like to this year to try to examine that, see if we could actually try to do that, modify some of the just some of the crews and stuff to try to use that as a way to
play games of Inquisitor, Inquisifex or something.
Inquisifex, with some of those models we've created, and still have that game, so it's not just strictly role playing per se, but have a little bit more freedom to do stuff rather than just the 6-sided die sort of thing. But I guess in addition to all those Inquisitor models, I feel one of the big things of 2015, or at least towards the end, was working and completing some of those Blight King Death Guard Terminators.
Oh yeah, I finally finished 3 of them, and I need to paint them this year, or at least start painting them this year. And wow, I guess I haven't shown any of this on the blog yet, but I'm also in the process of converting a Death Guard Terminator Lord to go along with them. And interestingly, he's based off of the Age of Sigmar Khorne Slaughter Priest model. And
I feel there have been a bunch of conversions around recently, kind of using that model to better or worse effect. But by and large, I feel most of the ones I've seen have been pretty neat. It's just a good,
interesting model.
Huge. He's huge.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I need to also finish converting him and hopefully paint him.
Yeah, what you have like a leg converted?
Oh yeah, I spent probably at least 5 or 6 hours or more just adding in the armor plates on one of his legs. So I still have to do the other leg and continue working on adding his armor and everything. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but he's shaping up pretty well.
Yeah, I guess another thing that I would like to do, which admittedly I feel I've been, ever since the blog started, been talking about how I want to do this, but with the excitement of the Forge World releasing their Warlord Titan, kind of gets me to want to look back into assembling that Warhound Titan we bought all those years ago and just kind of has been sitting in a box.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe we ever even bought one, but
Yeah, no,
It's like $250 or something.
I don't know, something like that.
it's a lot.
And it doesn't even have its gun arms yet.
Well, if we can trim, resculpt, and assemble the body and legs, like we can stand to spend some money to get some Turbolasers
Yeah,
for
like,
the beast.
yeah, like the title of this podcast. But yeah, I don't know. It is one thing, like looking. I mean, we clearly didn't buy one of the Lord Titans because they're like $3,000. But just watching some YouTube like unboxing videos and stuff, like it is impressive what that model looks like and how much Forge World has advanced by using like digital sculpting sort of
The
techniques.
casts, I feel, are just a lot better now than they had
And the
been.
fact
too.
they actually have instructions and such.
They're nice instructions.
Yeah, to the point that I feel like almost certainly Forge World will redesign the Warhound Titan using like sort of some CAD programming or something.
Hopefully.
And I think that will dramatically improve the models, just such that it takes advantage of the increased in like mold production and all that digital sculpting and stuff.
Yeah, I mean the one we have, like there are a lot of mold shifts that need to be rectified and fixed.
Yeah, so it'll be a pretty big undertaking, but with a little luck, we'll start to work on that and see where we can go. I don't know.
We need to get that Predator out on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I guess in kind of a sort of a divergent sort of thing, like one of the through a whole bunch of posts from 2015 was actually based around the kickstarted Kingdom Death board game.
What a game.
Yeah, no, it's quite the game. Like, it's huge, and the production values are pretty
They're high.
crazily high. And we had a bunch of posts about playing the game, kind of looking at some of the models and such. And particularly, Greg and I, we played a whole bunch of games of it, and I feel this year I'd like to kind of continue with the campaign and give some more impressions of how just the rule system has grown or not grown on us, which admittedly I feel
Hasn't grown on us.
yeah, after like kind of the excitement of playing the game sort of wore off, and it became more and more apparent that the game, I feel, could have benefited from more play testing and the advice of like some veteran board game like designers. 'Cause, like,
just getting the opinions and ideas of other people, like even of like the backers themselves, I feel would have helped.
yeah, because board games are not what they were like 15 years ago.
How much money did the Kickstarter make? Like $1 million? More than that?
It was. I thought it was close to $2 million.
Well, you'd like to think that couldn't they have used some of the money they made to like hire some other game designers to help advise how to make the game and spend less money on all the multi-part kits, which aren't very good. I mean, we just did a post on the website about
$2
that.
million, guys. It was $2 million when.
So I mean, it would be
Yes.
interesting to see how much, like, to actually make all the stuff that they made and like ship it out to everyone. Like that had to cost a fortune.
I'm pretty certain it cost substantially more than what
Yeah.
he earned, and he used money from kind of, I guess, all those pin-up resin models and stuff that they've released and all that sort of stuff. And just, I think,
So I mean,
The project had a lot of ambition, and I feel largely succeeded with that. Like, it's amazing that the stuff
I can't even believe we
here.
have the stuff. Yeah,
and
like,
it's actually quite nice.
and fairly compelling, but I feel like board games have advanced a lot in recent years and are a lot more compelling than like roll a die, move a couple spaces, like Monopoly sort of stuff. And I feel a lot of elements of the Kingdom Death game is a little bit too much roll on this table, roll on that table.
A
Bunch
couple
of
of your
guys
survivors die.
You can do nothing to influence that, and that's passed off as like difficulty rather than like giving you mechanics to work with that give you like a challenge.
Well, so I mean, here's an interesting idea. I mean, there are still a whole bunch of expansions for the game that they haven't released. I mean, there's a chance they'll actually try and work with that and improve some of it, at least in relationship to some of those monsters.
I feel that's
The,
wishful thinking.
the Dragon God kit gives you a whole new way to play the actual game, and that makes it fun. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it'll probably change some things, but I suspect almost all of those expansions were all designed at the same time, and hell, they're probably already printed and such.
I mean, who knows? Like, Adam Poots, the creator of that, he's been pretty receptive to the suggestions of like people. But I guess I don't know how much of like the rules for the game he really put up for discussion throughout the process. Not too much, I don't think. I mean, he was very receptive to people talking about like some of the models and changes to them. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess also for that Kingdom Death, we, as we kind of mentioned, that there were these multi-part models that were released in it that were supposed to be designed that you could, as you're playing the game and make new equipment and stuff for your survivors, you could kind of try to build those survivors. And I mean, it's by itself is kind of a cool idea, and it was sort of an innovative thing that they did. But ultimately, I think it fell a little bit short. Like, whereas most of the models in Kingdom Death are pretty stunning and unique and very well done, posed, all that sort of thing. The multi-part models are just
A little
a
lackluster.
shadow of the glory of the other stuff. And in kind of a quest to figure out what to do with those models, we're trying to start a project in which we used all these multi-part models and created the best looking model we felt we could with those sprues, and then want to send out all the remaining sprues and pieces and stuff to other hobbyists in the community to see what they can do with it, in the hopes that we can continue to have these models sent around and everyone kind of tries their best to make something neat, and honestly just to give other people in the community, hobbyists, the opportunity to kind of see what Kingdom Death's about and work on the models. Because to be frank, like $400 for a box game is pretty
Hard
ridiculous.
to swallow.
Yeah,
I mean,
could never justify that.
The only reason I guess we have it is because what the Kickstarter to get the box game, it was like $150, and even that's a lot. But I mean, I'm not gonna say $400 isn't worth it per se, because like all the components are wonderful. Like all the cards are this excellent matte printing. Like they have all these custom dice, and like things are just done really well. Like better than like any board game I've seen. But no matter how you look at it, $400 is a lot of money. It's gonna be hard to
set that aside for like a month or two to say like, oh, here's $400 I just had in this drawer. What could I use this for?
Yeah, so it's not like something that, like, if you've been playing 40K for years, like, and have a community of people play with, like, spending $100 some on a Forge-World model that you will use. Like, you don't necessarily have that guarantee that you'll really make back the Kingdom Death stuff. But I mean, I guess admittedly it's really easy to play it solitaire, although I think that would almost be the least fun way to play it, like, because it can be a little bit frustrating at times, people just dying left and right. Like, I feel if you have a group of like 4 friends. And
Laugh it
kinda-
off.
Yeah, laugh throughout it and just take it as it comes and try to just enjoy like what the setting is and what the game is. But
I guess it should be said, like, we've already sent out all those multi-part sprues to a fellow hobbyist. So,
yeah,
hopefully in like a few weeks we'll see the first new model from that project.
yeah. Well, no, so I don't know. Yeah, that's some of the stuff that I think we're gonna try to shoot for this year. I'm sure with just new Games Workshop releases and other releases, we'll think of new stuff to do, which will probably just be the subject of other podcasts. But we've been talking about for about an hour now, and maybe it's time we try to wrap things up. And
Yeah, I think it probably is. I'd be surprised if too many people's stomach listened to all this.
yeah,
If it even makes sense to people, like, we rambled on a whole lot, and
Yeah, I feel that if people don't know the models that we're talking about, it won't be very interesting.
yeah, I guess that's
or even
true.
know what the games we're talking about.
Yeah, well,
Aside from Warhammer 40,000, I guess.
I guess.
So beware, most people. This blog or this podcast is not for you.
If you've made it this far, congratulations.
Yeah, and maybe it is, but I feel perhaps in the future when we can talk just about current releases and stuff, maybe it'll be a little bit easier, because if you are excited about like, oh man, a rumor, the GW, like these images leaked or whatever, you can just see those images, the ones that leaked or whatnot, and we can talk about it. And
A lot of what we'll talk about will parallel to some degree what we're doing on the blog too. So if you're following that, it'll make more sense.
Stay tuned for us talking about the Raven Guard Prime March Korvax.
Yeah, no, it's true. He was just like finally shown, and even some painted pictures of him have shown up. And yeah, I'm sure I'll
He's
write
one
something.
angry dude.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll write.
He's
up
every
something
right to
about
be
him
angry
soon.
too.
Yeah, well, all right. I guess.
It's time to stop.
Yeah,
So, I don't know. It was a pleasure. My name's Greg.
Eric.
Adam, over and out.
Yeah, signing off.